Today's episode of Profiles in Risk is sponsored by SaveLaney.com. Our friend Alexander is a claims adjuster, and he uses a service dog for his autism and a couple of other conditions. His service dog Laney has been diagnosed with a very, very curable cancer, and we are helping raise funds to save Laney. Learn more at SaveLaney.com. Thank you. I met Alexander Ostojic while he was a risk management student at Illinois State. After he graduated, I helped him through a very tough first job search. While most RMI majors graduated with multiple job offers, Alexander was really struggling because he is autistic, and interviews are incredibly difficult for people on the spectrum. I connected Alexander with a few others in the community, and after over a year, he was able to find a fantastic role as a claims adjuster at Chubb. Alexander has a service dog. Her name is Laney. A few weeks ago, Laney got sick.
In my situation, Lainey helps me a variety of ways. Most frequently in public, she'll be doing her alerting task, which basically is looking around the surroundings and making sure no one goes and surprising our area without notice. If I'm being in a safe situation, Lainey will make a noise. Otherwise, she'll be looking around over 180 degrees. She can turn around, just making sure we're in the right situation and we're all in a safe and healthy environment. Another task that Lainey does is called deep pressure therapy, which is basically applying pressure when I'm having pain due to my fibromyalgia. And that she doesn't do a lot in public. She does it mostly at home or in an area when it's just the two of us. And then finally, she will do bracing, which basically means when I'm having some balance issues or I'm having a lot of pain and I can't really move, Lainey helps me with balance and getting up to bed, or if I fell unexpectedly. A couple weeks ago, Lainey did a nose biopsy, which is basically a sample and sent to a lab. And basically, we're trying to figure out what was causing the pinkness. The veterinarian called me and advised it was a form of cancer, specifically for the nose and skin. I had to pay $35,000. Most of it was out of my own pocket with family and friends. I did a fundraising. The biopsy was the first step to determine the cause. We're going to have our consultation with the oncologist on the 27th of July. And then from there, we'll go ahead and proceed with the medical imaging, ultrasound, as well as the treatment procedures. We'll learn more about the specific treatment plan, but some of the things that we were told previously was form of radiation, which could take several times to complete.
Emotionally, obviously, this is super hard for anybody. But financially, healthcare, I think people who don't have a dog or people who haven't had a major issue with their animal recently don't realize financially how expensive veterinary medicine has gotten. How much are they estimating that the treatment might cost?
Laney's biopsy was approximately $1,000 at most. For the treatment plan with the oncologist, approximately $15,000.
Okay, so you're expecting about $15,000. The question I have for you: what if your pet was more than a pet? What if your pet was also a key part of the family, which they are? What if they were also a key part of your ability to function successfully at work and at life? That is what a service animal is. And it's not an easy process to replace Laney. If the treatment didn't go well, it's not only the financial cost of replacing her, this is an incredibly emotional, difficult situation for any pet owner. And Laney, as a service animal, is so much more than a pet. Beyond that, I want to congratulate you for your career thus far. It's been incredible for me to watch from when we first chatted to today, how far you've come. And also I love how you are a visible advocate for our industry a visible advocate for Chubb, constantly on LinkedIn, congratulating people who get hired by Chubb, welcoming them on. Not only that, I think late last year, maybe last fall, you actually started openly talking about DEI and your own diagnosis, kind of self-disclosed your autism. And I think it's so important because you're being an example to other neurodiverse people. That you're actively showing potential insurance people that there is a future for them here, even if they're significantly neurodiverse. You're actively showing the industry that there is no reason to shy away from hiring neurodiverse people, and that there are roles that the way that your brain works is fantastic for, and how you guys can be and gals can be absolutely fantastic employees. So I think what you're doing above and beyond, thank you for what you're doing. I think that it is really important for the industry, the AI efforts. What good is a network of 23,000 insurance professionals like mine if we can't flex it for good? And I could not think of a better use of my network than to make this appeal for supporting this cause. So for the listeners, personally, thank you. If you are able to donate, the link is below. Alexander, thank you so much for coming on today. I am so proud of you for everything you've done already, and for being willing to come on the podcast. This can't be easy for somebody on the spectrum. Again, thank you so much for coming in today. Really hope that Lainey is okay, and really hope that the industry shows up for you and for Lainey the way that we show up for our clients and loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. One last thing I want to say is the reason we're in such a situation right now is I wasn't really aware of pet insurance, and that's part of the reason why we're in this dilemma, because I applied a couple weeks ago, but they don't cover pre-existing conditions. Unfortunately, because the diagnosis already came, it's considered a pre-existing condition on the pet insurance policy.
A great lesson to every listener, a great lesson to the industry. Pet insurance is a fairly new product. A very low percentage of pets have coverage through pet insurance. Veterinary medicine has gotten more and more expensive as the technology has advanced, and it can be debilitatingly expensive. And there's nothing worse than finding yourself in the situation where you have to decide between maxing out a credit card and losing your beloved pet or service animal. So yes, thank you for that. After you donate, also go and get pet insurance for your pets. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, pitching the second in a double hitter today. It is July 3rd, 6:10 p.m. in Buenos Aires, where I'm at. 5:10 p.m. I believe you're in Eastern time. Yes. I actually didn't check. 5:10 p.m. for you. On July 3rd, Monday, July 3rd, 2023, which for any listener, we are probably the only two people in the U.S. insurance industry who are still working, because I'm guessing maybe 10% work today, because who the heck would work Monday, July 3rd when Tuesday's a holiday? Everybody who had any sense made it a long weekend. But anyway, thank you for being here today. Thank you. We scheduled this one really quickly. Basically, for the listeners, Carly messaged me last week. I was on vacation that I should really have you on the show. And I messaged you like 2 days ago, and here we are. By the way, I don't even know if I've said your name. So the guest today is Rod Powell. Rod Powell, principal at Encore Insurance Group, and 2 times author of insurance books. And today it's an author conversation. We are chatting about Rod's books, which look super interesting. And because this got scheduled so quickly, I have not had a chance to read them. But I definitely look forward to read them. So Rod, first of all, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for being a giant nerd like myself who is working on July 3rd at 5 p.m. So thank you for being here. What what are your books about insurance?
First of all, Tony, thank you for having me on the platform, and I hope that some of my clients and business partners hear this and know that I'm working even when the holiday is about to to come up. So you know what I'm doing for you. I've been on calls all day, but yeah, been in this industry over a decade. Just celebrating my 11th year last October. And coming into this industry, what I found is there's a lack of awareness and a lack of education, right? So throughout my own work and just looking at where I sit in the space as a black man in America, I was looking for I guess resources that would tell some stories that I could share to other young people that look like me, to say, hey, look, you have a place in this industry, and you can do some things. And I couldn't actually find a book that really talked about black professionals in finance or in the insurance industry. Insurance as an industry has its own kind of connotation anyway, right? But I couldn't find that book, so I decided to just write the book, right? It's called Black Pioneers of the American Insurance Industry. It profiles 5 individuals, 5 entrepreneurs who were really integral in not only building strong insurance organizations between Reconstruction in America and the Civil Rights era, but also were inspiring and motivational and just powerful figures in their communities during their time as well, to really bring some socioeconomic strength and example. That was the first book, and that released this year on Martin Luther King's birthday, which was January the 16th. We put that out there. It's been doing great, and we talk about their lessons. The entrepreneurs that are profiled in that book. We talk about William Washington Brown, who started the United Order of True Reformers, the Grand Order of United True Reformers, and they were a fraternal organization that created an insurance company back in the late 1800s. It grew to become the largest black-owned enterprise in the entire country. We talked about A.G. Gaston, Arthur Gaston, who was the first black millionaire down in Alabama. He actually owned the Gaston Hotel and a bunch of other businesses. Gaston Hotel, for people who are listening, is the hotel that Martin Luther King based his operations from when he was doing the marches in Alabama. And he started his business with a final expense insurance company, and then he built everything around that. We talked about John Merrick, who built North Carolina Mutual, large at its time, the largest black-owned insurance company in the country. He was born enslaved in the United States, so couldn't read, couldn't write. Ended up, going to school, building some barbershops, then buying a defunct insurance company, rebuilding it throughout the community. We talk about Alonzo Herndon, who had a very similar journey to John Merrick, born enslaved, kind of really came from nothing and built this, $100 million enterprise, in the 1920s and 30s, and still existed all the way up to the 60s. And we talk about Ernesta Procope, who is the first black woman to own a brokerage on Wall Street in New York. Started a small mom and pop and ended up building it to one of the largest brokerages in the country, and the first black-owned and woman-owned in Wall Street as well. So that was the first book. And the second book is actually called You Should Get a License. I host a podcast where I talk about these careers, because I think that a career in insurance is the most underrated opportunity in business today. And I think if more of us are exposed to it, especially with you, Tony, being the voice of millennials, in this business, and really having young people, come into this industry, if we just let them know that it exists, then hey, more will come, right? But people just don't know about it. So You Should Get a License is really the book that every aspiring or burgeoning insurance professional should have. And it is the book that is the source, number one source for information, education, inspiration on the most underrated industry in business today. We talk about the history of insurance nationwide, worldwide. We talk about, the different market segments, property casualty, life health. We talk about if you want to know how agents get paid, we talk about that in the book as well. We talk about other career paths outside of sales, and we have a directory in the back of magazines, trade associations, publications, anything that a professional is going to need to make sure that they got a direction to point them wherever they want to go into business. So those are the two books: Black Pioneers of the American Insurance Industry and You Should Get a License, both available on Amazon right now.
Amazing. Real quick, I noticed that Black Pioneers is available paperback or Kindle, but You Should Get a License is not showing up Kindle.
It is not Kindle. So You Should Get a License is paperback, is hard copy only. As it stands right now, you got to read that one. Like, you got to flip the pages in that one. And frankly, because of the resources inside of You Should Get a License, that is the best way to actually read that book. But with Black Pioneers, it's a very short read. It is a coffee table book. You can get through it in one setting, but you'll learn some things that you just probably had no clue about. I know that as I was researching these individuals, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I did not know until I really started researching and digging in that the first African-American chartered bank in the country came from Richmond, Virginia, was done in Richmond, Virginia, where I'm from. And the house is still here of William Washington Brown, where he had the bank set up. And these are things that, I've learned just kind of getting into the business. I had no clue. I never even thought I'd be in the insurance industry, to be frank with you. I was in the entertainment industry growing up to my early 30s. But finding my way into this industry and, learning the power of it and learning how it touched every single aspect of all of our lives and, starting on employee benefits, moving into the risk and property and casualty side. I'm like, man, how come everyone doesn't know about this? How come everybody doesn't know this business is here and taking advantage of it?
So you're very much speaking my language. I agree. This is an incredible industry, and I am more of a carrier side guy that accidentally ended up being an insurtech side guy. I've never been licensed. I've never worked a day of my life in an agency or brokerage, but I've been involved with agencies and brokerages in many ways, as a recruiter, as an underwriter, as a sales manager or marketing rep. And I have noticed, there's several things here that really speak to me. So number one, insurance in general has a lot less books about our history than a lot of other businesses. Right? I bet you there's more books about Coca-Cola than books about the overall insurance industry. Right? There's just not that many. And much less about any minority in our space. I'm a giant insurance nerd. I had no idea that there were multiple Black-owned, Black-created insurance organizations in the country. I mean, NAIA was the only one that I was aware of, and it's an association.
And NAIA's an association, right?
Not an insurance company or brokerage or anything like that. So that is super interesting. And the other thing I have seen as a marketing rep, as an underwriter, I have seen lots of really successful agents who are very successful because they really leaned into their ethnic community. So for example, I when I was a sales manager for American Modern in California, I met a few Asian American agents who are stalwarts of the Asian American community in San Francisco, right? And same story with like Latino agents in Florida or in Texas, places like that. And I'm in Buenos Aires right now. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Right, like the black capital of America. Or of the U.S. And like when I say I live in Atlanta, Georgia, I have an apartment in Atlanta which is currently in storage. I vote in Fulton County and like, but really like, I don't work in Georgia. I didn't go to school in Georgia. Like Atlanta for me is an airport with an apartment nearby, with good weather and good cost of living. But the point is, so I've never like worked the Atlanta market, but I'm sure there are Black agents in Atlanta who are like stalwarts of that community because it's a 60% Black city, right? And I've never seen any books about the topic. So I'm so glad that you had the question, because it is so important. Like I go to a lot of insurance conferences. And there's one particular insurance conference that I've never missed, that I've gone to many times, and the leadership of this organization, the board of directors, at least 5-6 years ago or 7, however long ago it was that I noticed, is very, very white, very, very white, very, very male, and the funny thing is I know that they
That's
put a lot of
88%
work
of the
into
industry.
diversifying.
Right?
Yeah, well, so the board is made of company CEOs.
Yep.
So right, there's not a lot of diversity.
No black insurance CEOs. There's none.
And they've worked hard to diversify the board, but the funny part, the sad part, is that the ones that show up to the meeting are all old white men.
Yeah.
And there's several women on the board. They're never at the meeting. I'm guessing that they are, getting the job done back at the office. And I don't know if there's any African Americans on the board. I'm guessing there are. And if there are none that are presidents of insurance companies, then I'm guessing they're drawing them from the C levels. But again, they're not at the meeting.
Yep.
So the reason I tell this story is because multiple times I have had other minorities. I'm a Latino, originally from Costa Rica. My girlfriend is a disabled white female, uses a wheelchair. She's also in insurance. So for us, minority issues are very real.
Yeah.
And so I have had multiple people over the years ask me at this conference, do I fit in here? Right? Is there a future for me here? And so the research says that for Latinos and minorities and LGBT and women to feel like they belong, they need to be able to look upstairs and see themselves represented, right? And in insurance, we're not there yet. We're working on it.
Hey, listen. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna say. So same thing with the history. If I look at our history and I don't see myself represented in our history, it's hard to see a future for me here. So thank you for doing the work so that the largest minority in the U.S. can see themselves represented properly in the history of insurance.
Very welcome, man. I'm a father. I'm a father of 4, boys, and my son. This industry has changed, our life. Like my oldest who's 21. When he was younger, things were different. Like I said, I was in the entertainment industry, but it's like things were way different, and he saw kind of the transitioning lifestyle that we had as I worked throughout this industry. My younger boys, they kind of saw it. Like they've seen it to a degree. They obviously, kind of recognize the things that they have that others, may not have now. But more important than that, I want them to know that, hey, look, there's more opportunities than just, athletics and music and entertainment, and even dare I say, doctors and lawyers, which are outstanding, noble professions, right? But typically, when you hear about someone growing up, they say, hey, grow up, you get a good job, maybe you become a doctor, maybe you become a lawyer, maybe become an educator or an administrator in an educational institution, or some other vein there, if it's not entertainment sport. But you never hear anybody say, you ought to grow up and go into insurance. Whereas you mentioned the Asian community, and a good friend of mine, Joshua Mori. I don't know if you know Joshua with Origin. He's out in California. He said that, in Japan, which is his heritage, he said in Japan, if you work in insurance, that's like the biggest thing that you can do. Right? Yeah. He's like, everybody's like, wow, I mean, you got a job in insurance? Like, it's exciting. So,
Bermuda is that way, but I have
So I'm like, what can you do? What can you do to show that? My friends who are brokers. I mean, think about what you just said as far as working as a carrier rep or working as a recruiter. People think about the insurance and they think the only path is to become an agent or be in sales. But I didn't know a territory rep existed until I'll say probably 5 years ago, right? I didn't know you could be a major medical broker. I didn't know you could be a major medical broker. I didn't know you could do that.
Even most white upper middle class kids have with 2 professional college degree parents have no idea about 95% of the jobs in insurance.
Listen, so you already know what's happening in the black community. You already know what's happening. It's like it's not even a. Not only is it not a topic of conversation, it's not a thought. It's not in a frame of reality. And to your point, because I think that the industry needs talent overall. It needs black talent, white talent, Latin talent, Asian talent, like, you know, South Asian talent. Like it needs all of it. It needs everybody because the industry is dying out, you know, with, you know, just the status quo and the older company heads or agencies are kind of aging out and figuring out what to do there. So I think we just need a blitz of talent in general. So I hope that, you know, my books, you know, I hope Black Pioneers is not only inspiring to, you know, young black professionals, but I hope everyone can read it and just think about stories of just overcoming adversity and the power that this can create. These people were building entire communities. I'm talking coast to coast. You know, $100 million in 1950. Think about it. You know, that's quite a bit.
Probably, I don't know, 2 billion.
Yeah. So these individuals were leveraging this business to build significant empires that affected their communities on grand scale. And then on with the You Should Get a License book itself, you know, I hope that you know sparks a fire or plants a seed with anyone who gets a hold of it. I say it's for consumers, it's also for professionals. Like, look, if you want to understand how this business works and why you should pay attention to it, because it is a financial cornerstone as well, right? Just like you think, if someone's wanting to learn about banking and they want to know how stocks and investments work, they need to be learning about insurance too, because it's a part of that financial industry. And if you don't know it, you're bound to get exposed, because you're talking about protecting the most valuable assets that you have or sustaining your generational legacy after you.
100% absolutely agreed. For Black Pioneers, how did you do the research? Like, where do you even find this?
I looked a bunch of different places, you know. So some of it, once again, like I said, I'm in Richmond, Virginia, you know. So I visited the William Washington Brown House that's here, and you know, just did some study of Maggie Walker. It's Maggie Walker who chartered the first African American owned and woman bank, first woman bank and African American owned woman bank, was also from Richmond, Virginia. And you know, I started really kind of studying her and kind of seeing where that came from. And as I found that, okay, well, one of her mentors or the people that she looked at was William Washington Brown and what he did with his organization. Then came a gentleman, Wesley Graham, and then that became, you know, Maggie Walker's kind of template, and she ended up taking over, you know, Wesley Graham's bank. And, you know, all this stuff is out there. It's just floating in different places, you know, online, right? So, but here's the thing. You definitely have to deliberately be looking for it, because it's not the story that's commonly told in our industry. It's the common story about insurance is not focused on the fact that, you know, of the first 1,000 policies, one of the largest life insurance carriers in this country, and certainly one of the oldest, of the first 1,000 policies, 300 of them were on enslaved people as property for the owners. You know, the cargo, that Lloyd's of London was formed as a result of human cargo being transported from Europe over to the Americas. So I think that there is a bit of a distrust and I guess a negative connotation with insurance in the black community. I don't know what it's like in other communities, but I know in the black community there is a little bit of distrust there. And in the 60s, 70s, people were taking advantage. But I think with me and kind of researching the book, I wanted to show another side. I wanted to show the side where you have a place and that this can be leveraged to build your community. You know, so on social media, there's a term, buy the block. You know, people talk about buy the block, right? And they talk about be your own bank. Well, insurance, you know, provides mechanisms and vehicles that you can utilize to do some of those things. It also provides the mechanism to, like I said, build and sustain generational wealth and really close some of the socioeconomic gaps that we see in our society today. So research, the information is spread around. You just have to You just have to look for it. You just have to look for it. But once again, to your point, I couldn't find it in a book. I say, I'm just going to put together a piece, just to kind of encapsulate, this information that I'm seeing. And there's so many other people that I didn't. I only picked 5, but they're not the only ones. When Tulsa, Black Wall Street, when in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that massacre that happened, there were insurance companies black-owned insurance companies that actually rebuilt the town after that. That we don't hear about. We hear about the massacre, but we don't hear about the black-owned insurance companies that helped rebuild the town afterwards. So there's a lot of stories that are out there. Absalom Jones and the Free African Society, Africans who were coming over in the 1600s, and they had their burial and mutual aid societies, and coming together and figuring out how to take care of their dead. You can go all the way back to ancient Babylon. You can go all the way back to ancient Kemet. You'll find these insurance companies. So it's an industry that really has been around a long time. And I think that somewhere along the way, particularly with the modern era, we've just forgotten the importance of embracing it and learning the knowledge of it. So, I went out and just found every little nugget I could, and kind of put it in a very condensed format for the Black Pioneers book, and really kind of did the same thing for You Should Get a License as well. Just wanted to make sure that folks had a resource to go to, and no one would be out there looking and like I was and couldn't find it.
Black Pioneers. It looks like it's very short.
Yes.
So that makes it an easy read, which is good. But since you found a bunch of other leaders, why keep it so short?
Because first of all, attention spans are short nowadays, right? I mean, we're in the TikTok and Instagram age, right? So people are scrolling left and right.
True.
And one of my favorite, online, I was like coaches or mentors and kind of brain guys is Jim Quick, right? And Jim Quick always talks about, when you read, if you're reading something, you're looking to learn it, read in 20-minute increments, and after that 20-minute increment, then go back and talk about the information that you learned so you can help it become embedded into your mind. Well, this book you can get through in probably less than an hour. You might be able to get through the whole book in 30 minutes, depending on who you are and if it's a concentrated setting. But I just wanted to have an information to plant some seeds and start conversations, right? If I wrote it and made it a textbook or made it super long or included every person that I could find, then likely, just to be honest, it's probably not going to get read. It might end up on a professor's bookshelf somewhere, which I think it still could. But and is actually, because some professors have bought copies for their students. But that's what I want. I want the professors, they get copies for their students. And then the student who's 21, 22 years old, they can read this quick and it's done.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. When I wrote my book about millennials in insurance, we had been running insurance nerds for several years, and this was the first time that we were charging for something. And my fear was, I wanted to make sure that if we were charging for it, that it was not only good, but that it was long enough.
Yeah.
To not feel like a free ebook that just got printed. And my girlfriend kept saying, nobody wants to read a long business book. And we ended up, we had this tug of war, and we ended up at 200 and some pages. And so it's not long, but it's not super short. And I sent out PDFs of it to a few hundred of my closest friends, asking for advanced reviews. And a gentleman that I really respect, the former president of the CPC Society, I sent them out on a Friday night, and woke up the next morning to a review. And it was a very positive review, and he's not an easy person to please.
Yeah.
And the review started with, I read this in one sitting on a flight to London.
Yep.
And then very positive. And my girlfriend woke up an hour later, and I told her, you were right. It had to be short.
Yeah.
So yes, you are absolutely right. Okay, fantastic.
Look, it's Black Pioneers of the American Insurance Industry is 50 pages. So you can read that at lunch, right?
It's to whet
you know.
your appetite.
But I'll tell you this, Tony. One of the best books I ever read was 20 pages long. It's a book called It Works.
Okay.
It's called
Tell me
It
about
Works.
that.
It's a small book. It's about this big, right? I don't have a copy around. It's about this big, right? And it's about 20 pages long. It's about mindfulness and just manifestation and growth mindsets and all this stuff. But it's 20 pages. It's very short. And when I thought about Black Pioneers, I was like, what's a book that can really just say what needs to be said in the shortest amount of time possible. It gives a short bio. It gives you a few takeaways, from each one of those bios, each one of those stories, and then you can move on to the next. And it's actually a part of a 3-part series. So there's 2 more books that are coming after Black Pioneers.
Oh, fantastic.
As well, yeah.
Brilliant way to do it. And yeah, a book that actually gets read.
It's a book that's going to get read. If a parent wants to read it to their 8-year-old, my youngest is 12. I have a 12, 13. I got another 13. He's about to be 14. Then I got 21. Everybody can read this book. Everybody can read it and understand it.
It makes absolutely perfect sense. Rod, this has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Once I am back at home in Atlanta, which will probably not be for a year, once we have an apartment again in Atlanta, not just a storage unit, I will definitely be getting a couple of, a copy of each for my insurance book library. I'm halfway embarrassed that I never thought about it. I never thought that like I'm involved with NAYA and everything. I spoke at NAYA New York this year, or late last year, and I never thought, how come I've never seen a book about the Black history of insurance? So thank you for doing it, and thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely.
Look forward to continue seeing you around the industry.
Hey, thank you, Tony. I appreciate you. And when you get back to Atlanta a year from now, I do come down there too. So love to connect when you get back too.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.